Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fantasy Gods, the show at Dean with all of your sources for fantasy sports. I'm Brett Chaves alongside my co host, Toby White. Toby, I don't know about you, but this has been a very crazy NFL season thus far, with the coronavirus pandemic. And there's been a lot of surprising stories and a lot of different things going down in the world of fantasy.
That's right, Brett. From the stars, from the stars that are being, from the top stars to the duds, there are numerous surprises. So across every game, let's let's take a look at what NFL players have broke out this season thus far.
All right, let's jump right into our stars this far into the fantasy season. I'm sure everyone knows about this guy. He's been blowing up the NFL in the first 4 weeks, heading into week 5. It is Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks, undebatably the MVP right now in the NFL. He's going absolutely berserk. Huge chunk of passing yards, crazy amount of touchdown passes. I mean, Toby, there's nothing else you would want from a guy if you're Pete Carroll and the Seahawks.
Yeah, definitely, and especially having him on my fantasy team is a +1, and he's playing absolute best football of his life right now. And so he's also one of the front runners for MVP.
Agreed. I mean, he definitely can get you so many points in fantasy. I mean, I know I have him in one league. He's put me up 30 plus points in 3 out of the 4 weeks. The fourth week, oh my, he put up 27 points. Oh man, I'm so disappointed, but still, I mean, he's just come out here and trying to prove to everyone that he is the man and he can finally win his MVP, selection that he's finally been working for ever since he entered the league.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. So our next guy that we have for one of our breakout stars so far this season is Calvin Ridley. I don't think anyone saw this coming, especially with Julio Jones in Atlanta. But Calvin Ridley's been an amazing wide receiver one for most fantasy owners. And whatever league you have, ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, I mean, he's put up 20-plus points in almost all 4 of the games he's played, except for, the one exception he had against the Packers.
Yeah, definitely, especially since their main target Julio Jones is out, like he's coming injured and stuff, and he has been the main guy for Matt Ryan. And let's hope he keeps it up, even though the Falcons are 0-4. But he's the only bright spot that has been there for them this season.
Agreed. Now, 2 of the biggest tight ends this far going into week 5 would be Jonnu Smith from the Tennessee Titans and Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs. Both of them have been constantly ranked number 1 and number 2 in fantasy leagues. They've been putting up over 10 points per game, which is quite crazy for a tight end to do consistently. So what they're able to do for, your team, I'd go after them if you're able to snag them, for a quick buck. But these 2 have been fantastic.
Then and also Travis Kelce has one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and after coming out this Super Bowl season, they are one of the best. And also, Jonnu Smith is carrying on that momentum from last year, and he's playing like the best he's ever played.
Agreed. Now, one of the big defenses that no one saw coming, and quite frankly, they're one of the most consistent as far as historically in the past 5 years, is the Colts defense and special teams. This year, they are ranked number 1 as far as yards allowed for defense. They are playing unbelievably with, guys like Rock Ya-Sin and DeForest Buckner, who they acquired in the offseason. So they've been putting up very consistent points, over 10, per game in the first 4 weeks that they've played. And they had a stellar performance against Chicago. So if you definitely have them in your lineup or they're available on the waiver wire in your league, definitely snag them.
Which and also, I bet nobody expected the Colts defense to be this good in special teams, because they came out of nowhere, and especially like everybody first on the board was the Patriots defense that went off the board, which makes sense because it's one of the best in the league. But the Colts defense was a complete surprise to everybody, and so if you had them on your team, hopefully they can carry the momentum through. And with old man Phil Rivers carrying the offense.
Agreed. Speaking of the Colts offense, once again, the rookie kicker for the Colts, Rodrigo Blankenship from Georgia, He was a stud in college, and all of a sudden, he's looking like a stud in the NFL. He's averaging a little over 11 points per game in ESPN leagues. I mean, you can't ask for more from especially a rookie who's looking to replace the great Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah, like he basically had written on the name that Adam Vinatieri does not need to be with the Colts anymore. Like I know that's gonna hurt a lot of people, but Roberto Blankenship has taken over for the Colts.
Agreed. So now that we talked about some of the stars that have been, outperforming some of their expectations, let's take a look at some of the players that, maybe not performing to the expectations that they had going into some drafts and have really been labeled as sort of busts through the first 4 going into 5 weeks of the season. And our first one, I'm sure a lot of people didn't expect this, is Rob Gronkowski, the multi-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots, now Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He's averaging less than 10 points per game, which is quite surprising, especially with his caliber.
Yeah, well, everybody thought when we were going into the season that Gronk was going to have another great season, but he's not looking the same like he was before. No, like right after he retired and stuff. But he just like he's looking out of it and stuff, and he's not in his football shape. And also being with his best friend Tom Brady, and we thought they were gonna be insane like they were with the Patriots, but now it's like, what's the point of him even being there now?
Exactly. I mean, they have, two tight ends between him, Cameron Brate. I mean, they have OJ Howard too, but now he's possibly going to the injured reserve. And it looks like Brady's made really good friends with Mike Evans. I mean, Evans has been his number one target in the red zone, and it's been showing. He's had 5 touchdowns in the past 4 games, which is quite incredible for a wide receiver his caliber.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm. So another guy that, we've seen had a lot of production, over the course of his veteran years in the NFL is Golden Tate from the New York Giants. I don't know what it is, whether it's Daniel Jones in his sophomore slump right now, or maybe he just doesn't fit the chemistry in Joe Judge's offense, but Golden Tate hasn't been able to do anything. And quite frankly, the Giants offense hasn't done anything so far.
Well, it's also the Giants too, in a first year head coach, and they are looking not like the best, and it's so everybody thought Daniel Jones is going to break out, and plus the loss of Saquon is really hitting them hard too. So, like, it could go either way.
Agreed. And I mean, I originally had him. I mean, I can understand a lot of people who, own him right now in fantasy leagues. I originally had him starting my flex position, thinking he'd be the number one receiver in New York. But clearly that's not the case. And even Darius Slayton, who had a great first week against Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden he's not doing anything either. So I can understand a lot of people why they're dropping him. So if you have him, I'd consider benching him because right now he's not doing anything in New York. All right, so let's move on to our last bust that we have listed here, which is any Lions running back. Any of them. DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson. None of them have produced whatsoever. I mean, debatably Adrian Peterson, but not to the numbers that we normally see Adrian Peterson produce, but just you don't know what to do with Lions running backs. I mean, over the course of the past 10 years, they haven't done anything.
Yeah, that is so true. And plus, I decided to pick up like DeAndre Swift as a barrier for me, but I might end up keeping him because I feel like he popped off in like the first game, but now the past 5 games, four games, he has been quiet and nobody knows what the matter. And let's add on to the Lions team, their wide receivers are not producing too. Like Marvin Jones is not producing as much as he normally is, and also Kenny Galladay. It's maybe just the Lions, and they should just move on from the head coach because that offense is playing terrible.
I agree, and certainly a lot of people understand that. Patricia's a defensive-minded coach, and he's acquired quite a few pieces. I mean, he brought in Trey Flowers and Jamie Collins from New England, his former team. But like you said, I mean, Marvin Jones hit or miss in fantasy. He'll either put you up 2.5 or he'll put you up 34. So it really depends on who he's playing. And, he's kind of a streaming guy where you just kind of throw him in for a week and see how he does. But like you said, I mean, Kenny Galladay, he might be the biggest producer there, but he's equivalent to a wide receiver 2 at best. But nothing really coming big from the Lions offense. So we talked about our busts. We talked about our studs. Let's take a look at some of our waiver wire pickups. Who's available right now that you might want to stash in your bench, and who could potentially start in some fantasy leagues, depending on how many teams or how deep some rosters go. And our first guy that we're going to look at right now, who's had quite a few pretty good games in the past 2 weeks, is Tim Patrick from the Denver Broncos. With Cortland Sutton going down with a torn ACL and MCL as well, and with Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler trying to step up, he slid into that offense pretty well. And Brett Rippon likes him as a target, threw for over 100 yards receiving to him. So if you have him in your waiver wire and you're looking to pick him up, I definitely consider him as an option.
Yeah, especially the Broncos being 1-3, they are going to their third and fourth wide receiver down the line, and Tim Patrick went off on Thursday night, and it was amazing when he made that Randy Moss type of catch over that poor Jets wide receiver.
Agreed. I mean, I felt bad for that Jets wide receiver. I mean, welcome to the league, Jerry Jeudy. That was unreal what he did. Pulled, like you said, Randy Moss out of him and just snatched that ball, throw it in the end zone. So there's a lot of potential in Denver, and I definitely think, Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick and all those guys definitely have a lot of potential to, improve and better their game as they go on. So our next guy, he's been the man to talk about the past, 4 games and leading up to this season, is Joe Burrow from LSU, now a Cincinnati Bengal. Just got his first win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's on a hot hand right now, and he's been doing pretty well in fantasy this far, averaging just a smidge over 20 points a game. And if you have him right now in your waivers, definitely pick him up. He's a good stash quarterback right now and a good bye week stream.
Then also, that Bengals offense is kind of underrated just by having Joe Mixon and AJ Green, who was finally healthy after 2 years, is it, I think?
I believe
And he is – and that Bengals offense is kind of clicking now because Joe Burrow is finally used to getting hit in the NFL. And maybe he just has nerve jitters, but I would definitely pick him up like if he is on the waiver wire.
Especially with, like you said, AJ Green, T. Higgins as well, who they drafted, and Tyler Boyd, of course, another stud receiver, Drew Sample, who they also drafted. So he's got a lot of young weapons to look to and a lot of potential in Cincinnati. And speaking of a lot of potential here, a young tight end in Indianapolis, rising through the ranks of fantasy and ESPN, whatever league you have, is Mo Alley Cox. With old man Phillip Rivers, like you said, running that offense in Indy. He's putting up some pretty good numbers. A lot of people did not expect him to be this high in ranks this early in the season, but his physical stature has allowed him to, be a lot more beneficial in man coverage situations, and he's getting a lot of looks in the red zone.
Yeah, like it looks like normally with the Colts, it was normally T.Y. Hilton was everybody's favorite target with the Jacoby Brissett and Andrew Luck, but now it's out of nowhere. It's Mo Alley Cox, who is Phillip Rivers' favorite target, and this is out of nowhere. And I saw him on the waiver wire. I had to pick him up because he has averaged 11, so upwards to 10 points a game, and he's doing pretty well.
Agreed. I mean, I don't think anyone saw, like you said, T.Y. Hilton, being the least favorite target of Phillip Rivers. I'm in 1/2 PPR league, which for those of you who don't know, a point per reception. One receiver gets 1 point per catch that he makes. So in this league in particular, gets a 0.5 point per catch that he makes. But he's averaging less than 10 points per game. T.Y. Hilton has not been this productive as he normally has with, like you said, Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett of those likes. Just it's quite surprising that of everyone, Mo Alley Cox has risen up and stepped up to the occasion. So our final guy that we have here, another quarterback. It's not Joe Burrow. It is a rookie, but he's from LA, and it is the man Justin Herbert who managed to sneak into this role after a doctor accidentally punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung. And Justin Herbert stepped up and almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs in his first career start. He's averaging just about 20 points per game in ESPN leagues. And I don't think anyone expected Justin Herbert to do good, stepping into this kind of situation. He was projected to potentially redshirt at the start of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, because Anthony Lynn said that Tyrod Taylor is the main guy, but after the punctured lung situation and Tyrod Taylor being out for like a while, Justin Herbert went head to head with Tom Brady this past weekend. And I think everybody was so surprised by a 20-year gap. And Justin Herbert was throwing dimes all over the place. And especially on those Power Blue Charger unis. So you might as well go buy one if you if you have them in fantasy.
Absolutely. I mean, if he's on your waiver wire, definitely pick him up. Like we said about Joe Burrow, he's one of those guys you could stash in and stream for a good bye week. If you have like the guys like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, even Russell Wilson too. So definitely look to him and maybe a sneaky play next season if you can stack him as a starter. So we've covered our top studs, we've covered our top busts, and we have covered our waiver wires, and that is going to wrap it up for our first ever episode here at Fantasy Gods. Make sure you stay tuned for more fantasy coverage throughout the semester here at Dean College. Signing off for now, I'm Brett Chaves.
And I'm Toby White.
Stay calm and play fantasy.